Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Life Radio. I am your hostess, Narayani Gaia. And on today's episode, we will be continuing the conversations on the topic of being a spiritual being, having a human experience. And today we're going to be exploring with my good friend, Naomi Wilder. Woo, woo. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Hey, honey. Thank you so much for being here and for taking the time to be with me. We have a fun friendship and an inside joke that's stretched out for years. I lived with you for a season of both of our lives, a little season. And I've just always thought of you as somebody who is the real deal. I never questioned your authority or your ability to provide wisdom or practice. And I've seen you as a really beautiful leader in the community that has gone through her own changes for all of us to see, which is pretty much characteristic of this era. But I mean, even just within the community where we live together, the Bay Area in person, to feel that. So it's really nice to be here with this version of ourselves
Yes.
and to be alive together at this time. And just thank you so much for saying yes to be here.
I'm so glad I said yes. Thank you for asking me to be
Yeah, girl.
you. And I want to share that the first time that I really experienced you as a person in your essence was actually a yoga class you were teaching. And I left that yoga class and I was like, that was such a legit experience.
Aw, you make me cry. Look, I'm tearing up. I'm like, people liked my yoga classes. That's cool. Was it with candles at the Chi Center? That special one? Oh. Someone did sound healing? Was there somebody there doing something with me, partnering?
Maybe, but what I remember was how deep of a container you held for everyone and
Mm.
just allowed us to go slow. It felt so good.
Nice. Thank you so much. I haven't taught yoga in years, so that's a nice reflection. Thank you so much. Cool. So today we're going to talk about breath work because you have been offering this unique breathing experience called Infinity Breathwork that you've developed over the last many years. And I got to experience some breath work with you on New Year's Day of 2025 when we co-hosted an event with our friend Rose in Santa Cruz. That was awesome.
Mhm. It
And I
was.
felt and I felt challenged by the breath work. Excuse me. I felt challenged by the breath work because it had me do the thing that you do in Kundalini yoga when you have to keep your arms up for a while. But otherwise, I loved it so much. And it was the kind of teaching that invited us to be at the edge of our comfort zone
Yeah.
because you get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm done, or I can do. I had that happen this morning in Booty Bar, which is pretty much like hips and Pilates. And my teacher is at the YMCA here in Asheville, and she's great. She's very fun. But she was away for a week, so she said she wanted to like have an extra intense class because she missed us. So she's very cute and very fun, Ava. She's great. But it was the time when we got to lay down, but we weren't done.
Mhm.
And I was like, and is it Savasana yet?
Yeah.
Um, but and I just took a breath, I took a pause, and then I put a ball between my feet and started lifting up my knees and whatever the bizarre thing that we're doing to isolate the muscles was. And I'm tired. And it's a luxury to be able to just chill and relax. A lot of people don't have that kind of luxury if they're raising children or they're working in jobs where they have to have hour by hour accountability and they don't have the freedom to live the flowing life that some of us have chosen. Not always the most lucrative life, I got to say, financially. We're figuring that out. That there are people that, including lazy people like me, that, really benefit from like being at that edge
Mm.
Can you speak about your experience? Because you're not just a yoga teacher, breathwork teacher, you're also a psychotherapist, and you've trained in many things over several decades, of some which I don't even know about, I'm sure, as well as a musician, and you've had your own band and sound healing and sound therapy. And you work at a very prestigious place in Santa Cruz at the whatever it's called. What's it called?
14.
1440 Multiversity, yep. Haven't been out there in a while. And so you've seen a lot of things. You've met a lot of different kinds of people. You've traveled around the world. You know, you've been in many different kinds of containers. So that said, I'm curious if you have found where we're going to talk about the edge. We're going to open up like the value of working to your edge and maybe like pushing at the edge a little bit, because as female wellness practitioners, we know that the patriarchy has totally, infiltrated humanity in so much that we have lost a lot of the ways that we value who we are outside of what we accomplish. Okay. And so we have a society that pushes and pushes and pushes. And so as healing practitioners, often these days, a lot of what we're doing is just settling down everyone's nervous system. Get in your body, get in your breath, get out of overthinking, right? Just get present. So how have you, I don't want to say reckoned, because that assumes that it was an issue, which it may or may not have been for you, but how do you see kind of working at that edge with breath work, and why do you do that? Like, why do you take people to that, like, intense edge with breath work? And is there something about your life and your path that has you kind of, like, playing in that space? Because anyone who's done breath work knows it gets uncomfortable, and there's, like, a point where you're just like, I don't wanna do it." Commonly.
Commonly, yes. Great question.
Thank you.
So, what I nowadays, how I should say, how I approach breath practice nowadays is a bit of a smorgasbord of balancing breaths to regulate and stay regulated. And so, with working the edge, for example, that has so many benefits, but is it something you'd want to do all the time, every day? Absolutely not. Sometimes when there's a big group of people, the energy is like we have our masks up, we're kind of dysregulated in a sense, social anxieties and whatnot. So doing an intense breath flow together create kind of like gets the excess like anxiety out. And it's a concept called hormesis, which is the premise of homeopathy, which is you introduce a stressor into an environment and we inherently create an immunity to it in a sense, or we build up the chi to a point where it's no longer dominating us and we feel powerful and in our system in a regulated way and pushing to that point. But then what you want to do afterwards, which might sometimes be skipped by a lot of, facilitation out there nowadays, is to bring it down and ground it and be in the body because that's the real, work and
Mm,
being able to sustain the energy.
mm.
My focus now is on balance and, applying, I should say, all the different techniques that have very specific prescriptive effects and really assessing what do I need this morning? I did something I didn't do yesterday morning because I knew I was needing to communicate and talk and have my throat open. And so I did a chanting pranayama. And
Mm,
yesterday it was more about, getting into my body and slowing down.
mm,
Yeah, that's why I've over the years gravitated towards it in my practice as well as gravitated towards it in what I share now. Because they're tools, these practices are tools that can help the human throughout the day in a variety of ways. And so developing like an whole, I guess,
repertoire.
thank you. Yeah.
Repertoire of options.
Yes, and describing what this breath is and why it does what it does, and when you would want to use it, when you would not want to use it. The more knowledge we have as pranis, as breathers, then the more we can access when the time is upon us.
Right, right. That's really cool. That's really cool. So for people who don't know, I mean, if you've had a baby, you did breath work when you were in labor. There's you inhale through the nose, you exhale through the mouth. That's grounding, right? And in my body of work, similarly, like there's 12 initiations, the same stuff I was doing, but the book's coming out this year, the Awakening Map book. So same stuff I was blabbing about with you years ago, but now just, coming out as a product. But
How exciting.
yay! Yeah, so with each of there's like 12 energetic, initiations from grounding to trust, and they each have a breathing pattern that we do sequentially.
Mm.
And I teach that usually in it and then at the end, and then definitely for the instructors so that they understand. And this also comes from what a lot of your training came from as well as my yogic backgrounds. And actually, our old gurus, I know not your guru anymore, they were buddies, apparently.
Mhm.
And my guru, when before we were even in those communities, would complain that his devotees weren't as beautiful as your old guru's devotees
There
were.
you go.
'Cause mine were, like, dirtier hippies, they were at Woodstock, and, like, yours were, like, all in white, like, dressed like angels, and, like, mine were like, "So Swami, tell me something I don't know," and, like, Yogi Bhajan had people, like, with that pranayama. But I learned that we like, Swami Satchidananda and these gurus, and a lot of them, they're so dysfunctional, and there's so much patriarchy, and they've been abusive, and they raped children. I mean, like, I'm not saying either of them did that, but, like, that old model of the guru doesn't take that old those karmas and those stories doesn't take away from the purity and the value of some of the teaching. So I just wanna name that for those of you who are, like, anti-guru, like,
Yeah.
it's okay, this is a different era. Do you wanna say something about that before I share
Thank
the
you for saying
teaching?
that because
Yeah.
to take away all of it would be a total disservice, not only to humankind, but also it would place some sort of ownership to these gurus. And they were just messengers. They learned it from someone themselves. And so it's beyond the human form. It's an energy field of wisdom and teachings that, yeah, spanned time and space. And so it's hard and difficult to learn
Mm.
that some of these practices that you received, the way you received it was through somebody that you wouldn't necessarily trust, anymore once you've learned more about them. But to throw it all out or to be very anti is, I feel, antithetical. Is that the right word for it?
Antithetical to the teachings. Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole interesting topic too. I haven't talked with anyone about like Deepak. There's another one who actually was a devotee of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and apparently reached this is what John Gray shared with me when we chatted a few years ago, is that Deepak also was like kicked out of the ashram because he was like ready to teach. He was already like doing his own thing. And I mean, so many people now are like, okay, it's totally over. Like 30 years of devotion. What do we do with those teachings? There are teachings from one of my mentors whom I don't even talk to anymore, that really influenced my life for many years that are still valuable. So just to name that, those of you watching and listening in the future now, just try and take what resonates with you and leave behind the rest. So one of the beautiful teachings that really helped me because I come from um, an integrated yogic lineage, right? Which has an all faith altar, which acknowledges the physical yoga, pranayama meditation, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. So the studies and the practices of yoga, the path of devotion, the path of blah blah blah, as well as the yogic meditation and breath work and physical practice. But one of the things that Henry Hertzberger told me, who was also an old TM person, I think I should have Henry at some point, right? The the
Maybe.
Jyotish astrologer. Anyway, he's special. But he said, your guru is very much about the body. And as a hatha yogi, like when I first saw him, I was like, oh, he is in the room, he is in his body. Some of the older yogic teachers are really not about the body. I am not this body. I am truth, knowledge, bliss. So we learned that you can work with the physical to the more subtle, or you can work from the subtle to the more physical. So, and that we're always doing both. So when we come into the world, we go from the spirit into form. When we leave the world, we go from form into spirit. With our pranayama too, like our tradition did pranayama at the end of class because you prepare the body to be able to be comfortable, and then you get out of the way, and then you just work with your energetic system. You offer a chant to Guru and to peace on earth, and then you're done and you float out the door. Right, so kind of went from this, like, physical to, like, a more open, subtle place. So I love that you ground. I always start with grounding with my clients too, and then we try to maintain that grounding throughout. Do you teach people to ground while they're doing pranayama, or do you do it more in steps with your infinity breath work?
Well, I think that when I'm teaching a pranayama, at the end of the pranayama is when we really do the grounding. There's always some sort of way to come out of a meditation.
Yeah.
And it depends on the meditation that you've been doing. If it is something a little bit more energizing and challenging, then the coming out of it is like a almost like a hard stop, but in like a suspended breath sort of way. And the practice of the kumbhaka, which is the breath suspension, alongside the grounding technique of applying muladhara, which is a muscle retention at the base of the spine, kind of brings everything back in.
Mhm.
So that is an
No, right,
important,
you work with Muladhara on those okay,
yeah.
that makes sense. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
because if not, then you're just like, "What are dishes?" You know, like, you just bring it back in, and then the prana is in your body and circulating, and you're not outside of the
Mhm.
body, but it is also a very subtle experience as well because working with the pranayama itself gets you to those layers, if you will, but also the frequencies of the brain, the theta and the alpha.
That's Theta Alpha, okay. What's the goal of pranayama?
Oh, the goal of pranayama.
Mhm.
Well, I feel like there's an overarching goal, if you will, but then there are also specific goals for each meditation.
Overarching.
The overarching goal,
Like, listen,
yeah,
y'all are watching, you should do breath work. Here's why.
because breath work connects you to that which sustains you in life and it helps connect you to yourself. Mentally, spiritually. Mentally, it will make you very aware of the cycles of thoughts that you ruminate on, truthfully. And that self awareness helps you become a happier person, for one, but also a more like a person of self knowledge. And for
Mm,
me, the way that I work that process is starting with the awareness of what's been causing me suffering, like what thoughts are going on that like really are holding me back or keeping me stuck and keeping me
mm,
projecting or keeping me angry. And, okay, now that I know this is what's going on, where do I go from here? And the prana helps you see
mhm.
a new way. It gives you the power in your navel point to really ground into the physical body and then apply your awareness to your life, make different choices, like empower your choices. And that helps shape our lives, shape our days and our minutes, and that helps shape our lives and who we are as a human being on the planet. So I feel
Mm.
like personally, the overarching goal for pranayama for me is to honestly, to feel better and to feel like, um, an awakened human so that I navigate my days with more clarity and more love, you know?
More love. Love's always the goal, yeah. For those of you who don't know, pranayama is a traditional term for breath practices from India. So that's like most of the breath worker, many of the breath workers in America have started out studying breath from pranayama, from yoga teachers who have come here in lineages. But now breath work is taking on a whole new dance, which we'll get into in a few minutes. But I want to respond to that because I heard you say something that I translate as like breath work helps create space to navigate anything that you're going through so that you can have awareness. Well, you said it increases prana, which is life force. But in my experience, somebody's been doing breath works for a while. It helps it helps me feel more clear. It actually makes space in my body and mind within. so then I can feel lighter and then have clarity. If I When I was younger and I did a lot of it and a lot of spiritual practice, it led to a spiritual awakening, and then I had to do no practice for a couple of years,
That's so relatable.
right? I had to do no practice for a couple of years because I was so high, and my teacher at the time was just trying to get me in my body because everything was an abstract concept. Later, Dr. Rachel Abrams, who you know, was a beautiful doctor in Santa Cruz, I told her my story and she said, "You're lucky you didn't go crazy actually because people I went through such an awakening and I was feeling energy and I was seeing layers come off and I was able to start to taste food by just putting my hand over it and getting these things they call cities. And when I went to one of my she's like, "Do you want a boyfriend? Do you want a red bicycle? Like, what do you want?" And I was like, "I just want everyone to be happy." And so when I see now, and this is very common online, people talking about people that are so spiritual that they're bypassing. I've been naming that, like, we can also understand that as, like, a beginner stage on the path
Mhm,
too,
mhm.
and, like, to have compassion for those new practitioners who just wanna cling to the light like we did when we were younger, because
Yeah.
there's a refuge. It's like clinging to Jesus, same thing. It's like, "Jesus and only Jesus." It's like, why do you have to hold on so tight? Because it's like a refuge. It's giving you something you never had, a perception
Mhm.
of reality, an awakening of the heart, a lightness of being, perhaps. But then it comes time to pay the bills and we're like, still not. I mean, these days it's like, God, and just like really our whole way in 10 years is going to change around work. And you're right in the heart of it in the Bay Area. Anyway, back to what pranayama brings. So for people who are on the spiritual path, how important is it to do pranayama, breath work?
I feel it's important if you find practices that serve you, then it's a very important path to walk. And I also acknowledge and honor that breaks from it are actually a part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You know, it's when I've taken breaks and got back on that I've gone, wow, this actually really does something for me and for everyone else that has to deal with me.
Right. I mean, but I imagine it's similar to what we just learned about exercise, which is if you take a break from exercise, which I had to do for like 8 months because I had a piriformis syndrome. It was just walking for 8 months and saunas. That was like the most I could do. And they say that when you get back to exercise, which I since have, obviously, booty bar stories, is that you get it that much quicker. It's like riding a bike. It's like it comes back. And I'm like, "Ooh, I could see my arms getting strong again." Have you found that? Did you find that like it was like right there, your memories of your practice?
Yeah, it's just like immediately ignites something like, ooh, cellular memory of this like really yummy, juicy thing I used to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and actually
Yeah.
without the dogma, it's actually a beautiful practice. Do you wanna talk about why you stopped and share that?
Yeah, I stopped because we learned things about the quote unquote guru that shared the teachings in the lineage that I followed, Kundalini yoga. And it was interesting because coinciding what we were finding out about him, I was also feeling like I wanted to rebel and break out of everything and like return to who I was, you know, before all the white wearing, before the turban wearing, before the name change. And, you know, depends on how deep the cult. Like, I just had this, and it was right. It also coincided with my father dying. And so I had to step into a totally new role from yoga teacher to talking to like lawyers on the phone because he named me the executor and like I had to deal with all of his affairs. So, in that transition period, you know, I took a break and I noticed certain things like it was very good for me in a lot of ways because I could remember things I like to do, enjoy, and, you know, more joy came in back into my life. But at the same time, I noticed that after some time, I was like, all right, I got to get back into some sort of practice because I feel myself unraveling a bit too much. And
I'm laughing because I saw you unravel, so that's really precious. Yeah, right, right, because to control the breath is to control the mind.
yeah, Yeah.
right? And if we're always unraveling, how do we focus? And if we're
Yeah.
always focused, how do we unwind? So
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
place.
There's a
Mhm.
middle way. I mean, maybe it's I'm halfway through life, middle-aged now, and so, like, there's this middle way that I really just am grooving with. It just feels
Yeah,
good.
me too, man. It's great. It's great. I mean, you know, the core teaching from my original pranayama practice was, my yogic lineage is like, we're really ultimately searching for ourself. And what that means is like the part of you like anahata, like or atman, like we're all searching for that unstruck, like pure love. And whatever culture, whatever religion, whatever background, whatever that is, like find that within and everything else is just candy, and or poison, it's just extra.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to talk with you about, but I want to stay on topic here talking about infinity breathwork. So you birthed something called infinity breathwork.
Infinity breath. Take the work off.
Infinity breath. Okay. Infinity Breath. Okay. I'm going to change your description. Infinity Breath founder. Okay. There we go. Talk to me about how you founded that and why you founded it and the benefits, and tell us all about Infinity Breath and what's the deal with Infinity Breath? Because you've been talking about it for years.
Yeah, it started in 2024 when, I got, like, a wild hair out my ass to do breath work every day for that year, and I knew it couldn't be the intense, like pushing the edging, I like that term you used. Like it had to be in tune with the season, in tune with the day, in tune with the energy on the planet. And so I thought like, well, I could do one breath technique per month. That seems cyclical and honoring timing, and but also at the same time giving you the consistency of a pattern, a new pattern to introduce. And so I gathered up a group online and we did it. We did it every day. Like during the week was self-guided, and then weekends, I would meet with them online. And it was such a wonderful whirlwind, and
Mhm.
I feel like I got more balance out of it personally. Like I was still fresh from, breaking off with the lineage and everything, but I gravitated to the practices of that lineage for a reason. And so I asked myself, what was it about this, practice that I love? What is it about this practice that I love and that I could continue doing? And what could just stay behind? And so I took out my discerning glasses and looked through that lens and, really just curated something from there, but also from my other learnings, if you will, with Kali Ray Tri Yoga and ha- Hatha and classical yoga, as well as the, type of breath work where it's more holotropic based, and a little bit more intense.
I want to talk about that for sure.
And now I'm curating different teachings to teach people to teach and share it, And none of it's like mine, but there are certain permutations of mudras and mm, gazes, and there's
Mhm.
all terms. I don't want to overload everybody, but the techniques.
Mhm.
Share
Mhm. To get different results based on different seasons of your life, different moods, wow,
times
incredible.
of day.
Different times days. So people who go through your training can then work with groups or work with private
Yeah,
clients? Okay.
absolutely.
How long is your training?
The foundations training that I just started is 16 hours, and it's just an introduction to the terms and practices and what's what with the body and the regions of prana. And it's a it's a deeper dive than if you were to just go and like receive a meditation from somebody.
4 kinds of breath work, and I have experienced the holotropic as what they used to just call rebirthing. They used to just call it rebirthing, and so I wanna talk about Kundalini and Kundalini energy and Kundalini awakening, because my Kundalini awakening came from doing a lot of yogic practices, and we talked about this before, I think many years ago when you were on my
Yeah,
summit.
on a different podcast together.
When I did my first telesummit, you were on my second telesummit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and just in our conversations over the years we talked about that, but, um, we did alternate nostril breathing, which we call Nadi Sudi, which balances the right and left hemispheres of the brain, prepares the mind to meditate. It's very quiet. We do that like before meditation. We did Kapalabhati, the skull shining breath, which helps to like move the energy up to the crown and also is really good for digestion. And that's like the snapping one. And we did like Sitali, which is a cooling one. And then I learned in doula school, like breath, like for breathing out through the mouth and counting. And then I learned Qigong actually. And then in Qigong, we also do like breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth often for grounding, 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 grounding. Can you speak about things like that, like the different you just mentioned a whole bunch of different kinds of things, but can you talk about like any misconceptions that people have about breath work and what it actually is not. And then let's open up and talk about what happens when people start awakening because I've had my awakening experience, you've had your awakening experience, and I'm guessing your clients and students have as well, and I have as well had students have awakening from doing the practices that I share as well, which is also like my adaptation of the integration of what I learned. What do you see is a big misconception about breath work that you want people to know?
This is a great question. I'm glad
Thank
we're
you.
talking about it
Me too.
because when I right before 2024, when I was like, let's do breath work every day, many people, including people that I'm close with, were like, no effing way. Like, no, because they're thinking in their mind like the holotropic, the like really intense edging, 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 you know?
So holotropic is very edgy.
Yeah, and upheavaling, and it's like there's such a like the canon of pranayama and techniques out there is so beyond, it's countless. I'm getting like chills on my head. So it made me aware that when like most modern minds, when you hear the term breath work, you think about that.
Well, those of us who were around before saw that because there was pranayama and then there was like rebirthing breath work,
Yeah.
which has you like crawl up in a ball like this, which I went through with somebody a couple
Yeah.
of times. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
supposedly it
so
helped me, but I don't know if it
I
does.
yeah, I'm sure I feel there's many benefits from that style of breath work. However, to do that every day, it's just too much on your nervous system. Why would you do that to yourself? It's like it becomes punishment and fanaticism. And
Mm.
so like learning more and gaining knowledge about different techniques that are soothing, calming, doing it at night versus getting your energy flowing and your mind clear for the day. There's so many, and balancing when we're transitioning seasons and working with the doshas, the qualities of energy of your physical body and what's best for you physically. It might not be great for somebody else. So learning about these and teaching people to then share them has become a big passion. And it will, I wouldn't say that's the goal, but it does tend to lead to sudden epiphanies and awakenings that help you, like serve you in your life and your body and your situations and making better choices for yourself. And so, yeah, we should probably switch to talking about Kundalini because it is
Yeah.
something I share.
Yeah. Yeah, we are not going to talk about Wim Hof because we neither of us are Wim Hof instructors, nor neither of us have studied it. My max is like a year of cold showers when I was going through detox in 2023 after my saunas at the gym. But I like me some cold water sometimes. I like a good cold
Flushing,
dip.
like, just constricts the blood vessels,
Yeah,
gets
you used to do those early morning ones with when I lived with you
yeah,
outside.
I did, but, I'll tell you right now, I love a warm shower in the morning, a hot sh
Yeah, you do.
if I've been in the sauna, I love getting a little cold, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then the
yeah.
back and forth, like, I think, yeah, again, middle way, everything in moderation, and when you feel like your body's up for it.
But I think it is helpful for people to know why and when. I can't confirm this or deny it, but I was reading about how some people passed away under Wim Hof's care, and I don't know what happened. I don't even know if it's accurate. Or if you're an adult, you make your own choices, you have your own karma, so we don't want to blame anyone. But those practices do seem very, very extreme. And what I've learned from some more Native American indigenous lineage, like the Seneca grandmother teachings teach like the men need intensity. This is from Jamie Sams, my study of Jamie Sams years ago. And also my Lakota Dakota family that adopted me, my partner's family who passed. Like, the women's way and the men's way are different too, and I think modern feminism, as much as I, like, "Thank you, mom," and, like, value women's empowerment, I think there's a lot that we don't understand, right, about the differences between what our bodies needs when it comes to spiritual practice because they are so locked up in these, like, old ways of initiation, but they are more and more and more and more and more available. Even if you look at Christianity, which is the most popular religion, it's like, "Trad wife, trad wife." It's like, yeah, I just wanna chill, like, it's enough for me to, like, take care of a home and raise kids, like, that's should be valued. There's a whole culture around that, shall women choose that? But when it comes to, like, purification, because breath work is really purifying, right? Like, there are different, like, women, if you bleed every month, that's a purification time, like, you don't even know that yet, and now young women are becoming men because they don't identify with their bodies, so that's just a little opinion. Be careful not to. So, like, there's medicine in how God made you. Like, why? Like, what do you need? So we used to learn from yoga. Like, if you're on your moon time, you're grounding. Your energy is going down. It's Apanavayu. Is that what it is? It's like it's the direction that it's Apanavayu. So it's the direction going down. So you're not going to stand on your head, right? So like it's the middle of winter. Like you're freezing. You have like excessive cold in the body, like, don't do cooling breaths, like,
Yes.
just to learn these things, you and I have had to spend massive amount of money and time and trainings to just understand how nature works as a human in your
Yeah.
body,
Reprogram and learn these
right?
ways that are in tune with the natural cycles and physical body.
Right.
Yeah.
And some people are so grounded that they're so yelling at everyone who's so spiritual that they're like too spiritual. And some people are way too spiritual that they just cut off people who are like just focused on physical. But the middle way, like you say, is really healthy for all of us because what's true is like life happens in cycles like the seasons. So let's talk about some awakening experiences that have happened because that is a concern that people wake up too fast, too soon without community, without good habits, without support. I feel very lucky. I didn't know later I was like, "Oh shit, I could have gone crazy," because I was doing a lot of practices, but I also was doing a lot of cleansing and I was meeting a lot of teachers. So I had a lot of support. But then after my awakening and I stopped doing so much practice, I was very much in my addictions. I was drinking, and I don't mean like drinking all day every day, but regularly, like a few times a week and gaining weight. And I kind of like, I went the other direction, which is maybe something you experienced, although your story was much more graceful, where it was just like, yeah, there's more than this Monday. And I was doing healing work for other people, but I needed to stop doing spiritual practice because I was a live wire. I've had with my clients where we start working with the chakras and not as the chakras, but with the chakras, and they're sitting and they're running, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm feeling something come up my spine. I'm having an instant insight. Oh, all of a sudden my body says this. What does it mean? I know exactly what it means. I feel so sensitive. I feel so open. Like, these are benefits of spiritual awakening, but sometimes it can be too much and you could go into major crisis. Will you share with us some things that you've seen that you think are important for people to understand? Because we absolutely want to honor the teachings and the preciousness of life force, prana, and make sure that anything we share is applied in a good and safe way.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel it is really important to have support
Mm,
when journey through practices
mhm.
because they inherently bring shit up to the surface, whether it's a Kundalini awakening or whether it's, realizations about things that bring pain or like, a call to change things in your life. That's not easy. So having support is really, it really helps obviously, but also I feel is important because, when you're emerging into something new territory, you can question a lot. You can get confused. You can even, I've seen people get too, in their head with competing intentions. And also the nervous system, becomes a lot more sensitive.
Right.
And so it's almost like a tender bubble you want to be in for a little bit, but you also have to go out into the world. So then what? And when the energy is moving, the Kundalini is moving, she can really create symptoms and stimulations that are, in a sense, hard to deal with when you have to go to your 9 to 5, for example.
So what I hear you saying is make sure that you get the right support
Yeah.
so that you're first of all, you're learning correctly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and then also when things come up that are confusing, that you have the support to be able to work that through. Yeah,
That doesn't tell you what to do, like what the old school guru method would be, but more the person that asks you the right questions, that helps guide
that's the
you back
thing.
to yourself.
Best teachers ask the right questions. Yeah, that's that. Somebody was saying to me the other day, I said, "Oh, I was trying to work with this business psychic, and her student was suggesting I work with her, someone I met online, and we were saying something about telling what to do. I said, well, I have this feeling that she would probably tell me to work with you. She goes, I don't tell anyone what to do. She goes, do you? And I'm like, sometimes, she was like, I would never tell anyone what to do. I'm like, you got 5 kids. I'm sure you tell somebody what to
Uh,
do. But
yeah. Well, I think there's a difference, like,
different styles of teaching. Yeah.
but there's also, like, if somebody comes to me and they're, like, explaining their situation and it's just so clear that they're suffering, I will say, like, "Well, whatever you're doing is causing this,"
Right, right, but it's up to you to decide if you like, if I was you, what I would do, and that keeps people empowered to make their own choices.
Yeah, and it's authentic too because, it's sometimes so hard to see ourselves, so
Yeah, yeah.
reflecting
Uh,
that and
I'm gonna tell
being
you what to do. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, like do this, but like what's true for you? What do you need? What do you feel? This is what I'm getting listening to you. There's ways that we learn how to communicate that empower people to be in sovereignty. Yeah. I am thinking about the people who should not do a lot of pranayama, or if they are curious to do it, what they should do. Like, same thing with cannabis. If people are already psychotic or they have psychotic diagnosis, cannabis can take them into crazy town or psychedelics. And we've seen that. We've seen people doing a lot of substances. We know people who have taken their own lives.
yeah.
We've seen that.
For anyone unsure if picking up a particular meditation or practice is right for them personally, I would start with the very, very basic thing, which is just simply breathing and
Take a
noticing your
deep breath consciously.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that you're already doing, but you might as well do it consciously, and that won't hurt anyone. Slowing the breath down and just breathing organically in and out. That can
Right.
really shift your mind to a more positive and present mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
There are techniques you wouldn't wanna practice if you were feeling, that they might exacerbate something like that you have going on. And sometimes an intense breath practice is not the thing to do if you're already feeling very wound up, for example.
Mhm. Do you think in terms of like this, like energetics, like if the energies are like high and intense and we want to like, are you,
Yeah.
because homeopathic is like affects like, right?
Yeah.
But general herbal healing and natural healing is balanced with the opposites. Do you usually work that way? Or
General, yes,
okay.
absolutely. To modify an energy that you want to change, you would go to its polarity.
Right. Yeah. I remember when I first started waking up and praying in my early 20s, I was visiting Santa Cruz and the Grateful Dead was still happening in like 1994. And I went to a yoga center downtown and the woman had like bells on her ankles and I was just like, ah, it was like so magical.
Santa Cruz,
And
old school
I,
Santa.
old school Santa Cruz, and I was dating this guy who taught me how to pray with cannabis, and and we were somethingers. We were together, we were lovers, and we were together for a couple of months, and he was always like that deep, like loud breather, and I started breathing like that and meeting people that were like aware of their breath. It was California, it was conscious communities, it was like women's circles, and everyone was like, and I just came home and I was back in New York, and my parents were getting divorced, so it's the early 20s. And I would just like sit up tall and just be breathing, and I was doing yoga. And my family is like, "Why are you breathing?" Like people feel like, "Why are you breathing so heavy?" And there were other things that happened that were like very non-characteristic of how I was raised that like confused people around me. But even when I started doing massage therapy, which I kind of hit pretty hard around in the late 90s, sometimes I would do these big loud breaths, and I literally was working at a spa where people were complaining that I was breathing too loud. Yeah, I literally heard that more than once.
Well, they
Happened when I
should be
was
breathing louder.
right, right. But then when I started studying karate, my sensei taught me to actually not be audible at all with my breathing. So the way
Interest
that we train with karate is like you're breathing when you're pushing out, but you're not you because you hold that, and that's like the hardest for me. And then I used to have this Santa Cruz buddy, and she would always go, "You guys, if you're not watching the video, you can't see, but I'm blowing out thinner than a straw out of my lips, so quiet." I would see her just like nobody could hear it all, and I was like, "That's a really interesting." But
Yeah.
what I have found, and I believe to be true, is that when we control the breath, we control the mind. And if we don't control the mind, it's a wild monkey, and that's okay sometimes, but choose it to be a wild monkey. Be aware of it.
Yeah.
And also, my other favorite breath teaching is the quieter the breath, the quieter the mind.
Mm,
I love that.
mhm.
Yeah. And with awakening, I mean, in my experience, when people are going through like all of a sudden they're feeling the energy in the center that you start to feel your central nervous spinal fluid move, which once that happens, you don't go back. Like I could do it right now. I can make it move just hanging out. Like I could feel it. We call it running your energy. Once
Yeah.
that energy starts to move, you learn how to run your energy. And I teach people how to run their energy. But if they're not creating or expressing with it, then it almost can create like an isolation again, like more extreme. So, how do you advise people to not go too extreme? Or if they are going through something that they feel is a crisis, like, my God, the masks are coming off. I don't know
Mhm.
who I am or what to do with myself.
Mm. Mhm.
I have a friend like you. She was a reggae singer, very white, hippie chick sister. I say that with like all love and respect, you know, who all of a sudden like was in a Grateful Dead band, and then she's become like she's all she does is Grateful Dead, everything. Like it's similar to you, like kind of found her, like returned home to like her community in a certain way.
Yeah.
But that identity became so strong too that I wondered, and this goes into we're almost at the hour, so we have the opportunity to go into a whole other topic, which I'd like to touch on a little bit, is the process of identity shifting.
Mhm.
And the natural process when the layers come off and the patterns are no longer hitting like they used to, your sense of how you orient changes, and you no longer agree to the things that people around you assume or used to think about you. You're like, "Oh, that was so 2015." Just not anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you support when you have clients going through I mean, you're also a therapist, so do you integrate like breath work and therapy? Do you have them just like slow everything down? How do you support people going through identity shifts, whether it's a surprising spiritual awakening or like what we talk about a lot on Awaken Life Radio, people finding like a new path of like their dharma or their work or their just new parts of themselves? How do you support them with that? And does that happen? Of course it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens often, and I think that's actually why they gravitate towards me at that time, like, or we find each other at that time, and I always encourage people to really get quiet enough to hear their soul's voice and then trust that voice and understand that there will always be these other voices, even from within ourselves, but the external noise as well. And to get that quiet time every day to connect to the soul and just do
Mm,
your best to live life from there and understand that there will be distortions of our mind that kind of pull us away from that feeling of embodiment, but also there will be external situations, things we can point to say nothing's working or maybe I should go backwards. And
mhm,
I feel like personally, we get to a point where we understand change is inevitable, but there's a part of us that is our truth, our essence, and that we know it always stays with us, even if we're going through a phase or even if we're trying
mm,
something out to see if we like it. Some people live life trial by trial and error. Some people, go a certain path and then they just jump to a different timeline all of a sudden. Your journey is so unique. My journey is
mm.
so, and it's really just between us and spirit and really my own practice, and that's what I encourage others to do, is to really get in touch with that inner voice and be okay with following it no matter what, and really accepting that there will be challenges that go with that are very unique to the person. Yeah,
That's the best. Yeah, I love how you say get quiet and find your soul's voice, because it really is in that quiet where you start to resonate with peace. And if we're in that vibration of peace, then we can think from a place of peace, right?
we can make decisions from that place. We can speak from that place. Yeah, it's a vibration we maintain through consciousness and
That's
directing
true.
consciousness. And when you asked me earlier what the goal of breath work is, I would
Mhm,
say getting to a 0 point, the shunya, the deep listening,
mhm,
so that the distilled voice that is our truth is online and we can actually hear it because we've quieted the mind to that point.
right.
There's no there's drugs that will do that too, but like when you find a way to do that organically,
Plant
there's no
medicine.
yeah, sorry. But
Yeah.
yeah, all of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is medicine. All of it is medicine, but when you find a practice that you can do that can be what happens without anything external, it's very extraordinary.
It's the biggest gift, really. I mean, if even one person is watching this and they realize, "Oh, yeah, I know how to get peaceful in myself. Oh, I wanna do that. Oh, that is what my goal is," then this is worth our time. I mean, it's just hanging out with you is worth my time. But
Yeah.
I think that's really the goal. I mean, when I went deep into the yogic lineages and studies and practice, the goal is often like, awakening the divine self, the heart, knowing who you are, but getting to that like peaceful still point where you get out of the mind and you feel a sense of peace, and nobody or nothing outside is providing that. You've found the gold. Yeah. And then somebody comes in and they're cranky and they annoy you and then we get to do off the mat practice and breathe. Yeah, breathwork's very powerful. There's some other cool things I learned about breathwork, like when I did Ayurvedic massage training at the institute, and we'll wrap up in like the next 5 minutes. We'll finish up because I know we're getting on time here. And, like, if you're a massage therapist, like, don't have your client often, like, I found, especially when I was working in Silicon Valley, when I was doing body work, they're doing yoga. The people that get massage also do yoga. So they're doing this long inhale and long exhale when they're getting body work. But what that's doing is that's blocking them from what is authentically coming up as a result of the touch
Yeah,
in the moment. So they're just
yeah,
like regulating themselves, but there's somebody touching them, penetrating different parts of their body. So like if you get massage, don't do long, deep inhales and exhales. Don't control your breath
yeah, yeah.
when you get body work. That's really interesting because it'll also like then the therapist is like in train with you and you're no longer even receiving.
Mhm.
So there's a lot with breath that we learn, right? With like how we entrain with each other, sleeping with somebody and they're like breathing very heavy. I can't do that. I happen to be very quiet breather when I sleep, but like when my cousin and I go to the beach, I got my earphone. I gotta go. Like, love you, cuz. She's fine. She's cool. Anything else you feel like is important to name or talk about or share? And then, of course, how can people follow up with you?
I would name
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a specific word for it, but it's like giving yourself permission to try something that seems not you. Like if you
Mm.
curious if you've been curious about picking up a practice and it's, something you've thought about more than once and, you just don't know where to begin, give yourself permission to be curious and you'll probably bump into it. It will probably show up more and more in your field to the point where you'll find a teacher, you'll find a practice. And it's a strange, like self initiation, to just
Mhm.
yourself to try it and see if you like it, with any practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. Follow that curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. It's a good reminder. I wanna stay curious. I wanna keep learning too. Well, thank you so much for this time, and we'll have to do it again on some other things
That would be
down the
fun.
way, and I'm so happy to see you. How can our people follow up with you?
You can find me on Instagram at infinity underscore underscore breath, and I will be sharing more breath practices there. And
I'll put that in the notes.
yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
If you guys
Narayani.
have any questions, reach out directly. People can message you on Instagram too. That's okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.